know about spies? Does everything you know about spies come from movies? Because it's not always reality, but there's a lot in there. There's a new series out on Amazon called Spies, and I'm not, I don't promote this or that, but this particular series caught my attention because it's about Russians by Russians in Russian. And it's set in the time frame of 1941 when Germany was invading Russia. And make no mistake, in the Russian psyche, Germany invading them and destroying so much of their country and killing so many of their members was a big deal to them. And also that Stalin was in power and he was killing a bunch of them. They lost, I think, 50 million people in that war, which is, a sixth, right? A sixth of our population now. That's huge. Now, what strikes me about this particular series is the mindset of the Russians, because the Russians are not, they are very Eastern, they're not Western like us, and they're not democratic like us. At the time, they were very much communist. And so for all these egalitarians in our society, look to the Russians, because that's basically what communism was doing. It didn't believe in religion, and it didn't believe in women staying home and raising the children. One of the practices of it, now it's probably a tenet too, but since I haven't done an in-depth study of communism right now, but I'm going on what I've learned and seen over the past 30, 20, 40 years, is that if you were a Russian woman, you were as much a servant of Mother Russia, the Communist Party, as any servant was to any master. And they didn't matter. I mean, I'm sure they tested for aptitude, but if they didn't, they just stuck you in a position and told you to do it, whether you wanted to, knew anything about it, had any aptitude or not. And so there were Russian doctors and Russian scientists and Russian tractor operators. And the women in general, there was this hilarious commercial about fashion, and I forget, I think it might have been Kmart, and it showed the same woman looking about like I do right now in like a coverall or just very monochromatic baggy clothes, and they're doing a fashion show, and it's like day there, evening there, swim there, and it was all the same, because in the communist model everybody was the same. Same thing with Mao and that, that green frock thing that all the communists wore. Anyway, because they have that mindset, the way their spies operated was different than American spies. Of course, American spies were loyal and looking to get intelligence and looking to help their side in the war, which these Russians are. But they put a juxtaposition early on in the beginning of the series between two of the main female characters. The one was a criminal, the other one was like, parents were some sort of professor or some sort of bourgeois. And the criminal girl, through a series of events, gets her very psychopathic boyfriend to the other woman's home where she and her father and mother live, and she's about to be fiancéed, and the criminal lady's boyfriend psychotically kills the mother and grievously wounds the father. The fiancé is not there, and the young lady is beaten and passes out, and in typical communist fashion, she's arrested. The victim is arrested and blamed for the whole thing because she's the only one there left alive when they show up. Also, the boyfriend kills two men who are coming to the apartment to tell the father, we have a job for you to do or something. And the criminal thinks they're criminals, so he shoots them too. So there's 5 dead people, 1 live girl. She must be guilty. And so what the state offers her is you go to prison or you become a spy in this special program. And they capture the criminal girlfriend as well, and I think it's because she's trying to run away with her daughter and she gets captured at a train station, and they're put together. Now, in a Western movie, the revenge of the, the victim upon the criminal girlfriend would be the main storyline. We Westerners are really big into vengeance, even though the Lord says, vengeance is mine. But in this scenario, and it's a very interesting mindset, the victim doesn't like the other girl, but her higher priority is serving her country. And she and her fiance had kind of set that up, talking about to each other, we're going to be a power couple, and he's in the military and she's going to do something for the country really, really great and heroic. And in that whole thing, the context, then the war starts. So when the victim girl is offered the chance to serve her country as a spy, she takes it, and she puts that priority above the priority of revenging herself on the other criminal girl. Very interesting. And so they are starting in their training, and they're given scenarios, and then they have to go on operations because the war has broken out. And it's always, that's where the tension in the series comes from, is that girl having to put the operation and her country above her need for revenge for her mother's death, etc. And I wonder about that in Americans now, because we've been given sort of a parallel situation, but it's not exactly the same. And it started when, I think it was Bush was in office, and we were asked to spy on other citizens. That is very, very not right. And yet, if you were in Revolutionary War America, and you were British colonists, because nobody was an American then, everybody was a British colonist. And now you have one faction of the colonists rebelling against the mother country, which in this case was England. And so now you have colonists who are for England and colonists who are rebelling against England, and they were spying on each other, and they were turning each other in. Thomas Paine got hung because he was spying. So what is Bush trying to create in the country? What is the government trying to create in the country when it starts asking people to spy on each other? Definitely a division there, okay? And it's kind of unsavory, because we are all Americans. Whether you like it, you agree with our history, if you agree with our presidents and what is happening in our country now, if you live in America and you are a citizen, you are an American. And that's just a fact. It has nothing to do with your personal wishes or anything else. The other fact is America is one of the best countries to live in the world. We have a very safe society, and we have very advanced technology here. We have great hospitals, great doctors. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that, but automobiles, we have a great standard of living. I'm not saying it's the best in the world, but I'm saying it's really good for most people. We don't even really have, although there are, of course, some poorer people in our country, but there's lots of welfare and programs and free lunches and free breakfasts and free summer programs for people who get out and actually claim those benefits. And this is, my video is not like, yeah, America. I'm just stating fact. You are a citizen of America. Well, these Russians, these girls, and it is true for the people who lived in Russia at the time, and Germany, and all those countries involved in the war, everything was about your country and who you were. Japan was a tiny little nation, but they were all on fire. They had their society, their government had fomented these warriors who were willing to take airplanes and crash them into ships to try to sink the ship. Australia was a relatively new country and kind of young, and they were the victim over and over of the Japanese war machine. Countries like Poland, Germany just rolled right over them, and it made a difference. Are you Polish? Are you loyal to Poland, or are you going to join the Germans and now become a Nazi? And Now your nationality doesn't matter. You're a Nazi, not a German, or, not a Pole, or say a Latvian or whatever. Britain, that's the time of Churchill, and rallying his countrymen because their country is being bombed by the Germans, and lots of British soldiers are dying. They're in France and defending it, and then they lose, and they have to, that's that whole Dunkirk movie, they have to flee France, and they barely make it back with enough people to defend their own country as the German war machine rolls in. So country in World War II was a huge deal. And it was also part of the whole communist war in Vietnam. Vietnam is one country, but there's a North and a South, and the North is communist and the South isn't. And so America gets in there where France had been and is trying to keep one part of the country from taking over the other part of the country. So country, nationality, citizenship is really important in geopolitics, or can be, when there's conflict. And so, are you an American? And are you spying on other Americans? And do you think it's right for the government to ask you to do that? And then, in our country, it's almost like we have a war going on. And it's a hot topic, and it's not something I made up, but other people have seen this. Brother Jerry made a video on it's basically a civil war here now, and he's got 53,000 views, where most of his videos have 30, 100. It's a thing. Are we in a civil war right now? And what would that civil war be? What's the dividing line? Right? For some people, it's the liberals who are extremely liberal, the feminists and the, socialists and the communists' views that we see coming out in the media and people's mouths. Maxine Waters was a big example where she was saying, attack, physically harm Trump followers. And inciting people to violence is a crime. So, are we going to get involved in that? Is that really what we want for this country? Because when that happens, the country is weak. And when the country is weak, that's when other countries can come in, invade, take advantage, take over. Now, we have a very strong president, and I think he is fighting to improve the country. He's fighting to take down our outside enemies like Kim Jong-un and Muslims, Islamists, ISIS-type guys and extremists. But it's not going to do a whole lot of good if the country as a whole is fractured. And I think that's what the whole left push in the media and the crazy, Occupy Wall Street, I think that's what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to fracture the country. And we cannot let the media fool us into thinking that that's the majority, because it's not. These kinds of things are happening again on the coasts where all of those very liberal mindset people are, and they are not the majority. And so I say, be united. At least understand you're a citizen. If you can get involved in politics in your area, get involved in there and start voting and making laws, etc., to keep a certain level of American life the same. That's the beauty of some of the European countries and why they are still around thousands of years after they originally got started. France, maybe not so much because they've had a lot of liberal stuff going on, but Italy, England, I don't know so much about Spain, but they keep the things in their society that are lasting and true, if that makes sense. Agricultural life, family life, kindness to strangers, adhering to laws. Laws are there to keep the general public peace. Not getting involved in criminality, legally paying your taxes, and hello Christians, that's what Jesus was saying when he was holding the coins and saying render unto Caesar. okay? Money is not something that the Lord is like, oh, blah, about. There are laws on the books about that. Adhere to them. Be a good citizen. Be a good neighbor. Help other people. That is the majority of the country. That's all this middle part. The people who voted for Trump. That's what we're trying to hold on to and keep. So having said all that, today's 3rd of July, tomorrow's the 4th. It is a celebration of the birthday of the Constitution being signed and basically the country being formed. Pastor and I are not going to be setting off fireworks. We're not going to have a birthday cake. But a lot of the country will be. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, that we celebrate this country as a whole. Yes, I know it has faults. Yes, I know it's done some heinous things in the past and probably still doing some heinous things that not all of us agree with. But in general, it's not a horrible country, and for a while, we definitely stood for right. We saved Europe from the Nazis. We sure did. We tried to save Vietnam from the communists. We definitely tried to save the Korean Peninsula from the communists. I'm just going to leave you with, think about that. Think about being a spy. What you would spy for, and if you would spy at all. You may even be needed to try to see spies that are here working against our country and going to try to pull it down. And we do need to resist that. It would not be beneficial to any of us to have this country fall. You cannot picture the chaos and the destruction that would come after that. And you're at your keyboard thinking, hey, that's exactly what I want. Guess what? There'd be no keyboard, no pizza delivery, no more Mountain Dew. Give it some thought, folks. All right, shalom.